The entire royal court had gathered to watch Elara Vane kneel. Cold moonlight poured through the open ceiling of the crescent arena, turning the white marble floor silver beneath her feet. Thousands of wolves surrounded the ceremonial pit in rising rows of black stone balconies. Royal banners snapped violently in the winter wind. The scent of iron torches, wolf fur, snow, and perfume thickened the air until breathing itself felt difficult. And above all of it stood the throne of the Royal Alpha. Kael Draven sat upon it like a king carved from shadow and steel. His black ceremonial armor reflected the moonlight in fractured streaks. Silver wolf sigils climbed his broad shoulders. The crown resting against his dark hair looked less like jewelry and more like a weapon someone had forced onto his head. Every noblewoman in the kingdom watched him with hunger. Every alpha in attendance watched him with caution. But Kael's eyes were fixed only on Elara. That should have comforted her. Instead, it terrified her, because she knew that look. It was the same expression he wore before executions. Elara Vane, the high priestess announced, her voice echoing through the arena. Step forward and receive judgment before the moon. The chains around Elara's wrists clinked softly as she obeyed. Not punishment chains, ceremonialons. That was somehow worse. The silver links represented surrender to the royal bond ceremony, a sacred tradition among the old wolf bloodlines. Once a future Luna accepted them, the Royal Alpha either sealed the mate bond publicly before the kingdom or rejected it forever. The crowd already knew which outcome awaited her. They had known for weeks. Elara walked slowly across the marble floor, while whispers followed her like blades. The dead wolf girl. She should have been released years ago. The goddess never marked her. She cannot rule beside him. Not one voice defended her. Not one. At 23 winters old, Elara had become the kingdom's oldest unclaimed noble daughter. Not because she lacked beauty. In truth, her beauty unsettled people. Long dark hair, pale skin, silver-gray eyes that seemed almost transparent beneath moonlight. No. The problem was what lived or failed to live inside her. Every wolf born beneath the moon carried a spirit beast bound to their soul. Every child shifted eventually, except Elara. Her wolf had never awakened, not once. When healers examined her at 13, they found something impossible. Silence. No heartbeat beneath the soul tether. No sleeping wolf. No dormant spirit. Nothing. The healers declared her wolf dead. And in wolf kingdoms, a dead wolf was considered an omen worse than deformity. It meant the moon goddess herself had rejected the soul. Still, years ago, before politics poisoned everything, Kael had chosen her anyway. Or at least she once believed he had. Their fathers had forged the engagement after the War of Broken Fangs. Elara's father died, saving the former king during the final battle. In repayment, the crown promised that his daughter would one day become Luna beside the future Royal Alpha. As children, Kael had treated her differently from the others. Not kindly, not softly, but honestly. He never pitied her. When other noble children mocked her silence during moon ceremonies, Kael once bloodied a boy's mouth for calling her cursed. When she was 15 and failed another shifting trial before the court, Kael had stood beside her afterward beneath the palace cliffs while snow fell around them in silence. "You look at me like you expect disgust," he had said. "You should. You mistake me for a kinder man than I am." Those words should have wounded her. Instead, they stayed with her for years, because he had spoken them while wrapping his own cloak around her freezing shoulders. Kael had never been gentle, but once, long ago, he had protected her, until Seraphine Vale arrived. The sound of silk brushed across marble. Elara lifted her eyes. Seraphine stepped gracefully toward the throne platform, glowing beneath candlelight like something crafted entirely for admiration. Gold-threaded white fabric clung to her elegant figure. Moonstones glittered against her throat. Her pale hair flowed down her back in soft waves that every noblewoman in the kingdom had already begun copying. Beautiful, perfect, alive, with wolf power. Even from where Elara stood, she could feel Seraphine's wolf aura pressing against the crowd like warm velvet. Wolves lowered their heads instinctively around powerful bloodlines, and Seraphine knew it. The court adored her because she represented safety, fertility, strength, future heirs, everything Elara could never give the throne. Seraphine approached Kael slowly before kneeling beside his throne. "My king," she said softly. The title hit Elara harder than expected, not because it was inappropriate, but because Seraphine already sounded like she belonged beside him. Kael looked down at the noblewoman, expression unreadable. Then his gaze returned to Elara. A strange tightness pulled across his face. Pain, regret, fear. It vanished almost immediately. "Elara Vane," Kael said at last, his deep voice carrying through the silent arena. "By authority of the crown, and under witness of the moon, I release you from the royal mating contract." The words shattered through the court, not because anyone was surprised, but because hearing it aloud made the humiliation real. Elara felt every eye in the kingdom settle onto her, waiting, watching, hungry for weakness. She kept her spine straight. That alone cost her nearly everything. Kael rose from the throne, massive, terrifying, a true royal alpha in his prime. He descended the marble steps slowly until he stood directly before her. Up close, he smelled of winter smoke and blood, and beneath that, wine. Elara noticed it immediately. The scent had worsened over recent months. Bitter, metallic, wrong somehow, like sickness hidden beneath royal perfume. No one else seemed aware of it. But Elara had spent years learning Kael without permission. She noticed everything. His exhaustion, the darkness beneath his eyes, the slight tremor in his hands, the black veins sometimes visible beneath his wrists during council meetings. Something inside the royal alpha was dying, and somehow, no one saw it. Kael reached toward her throat. His fingers brushed the moonstone pendant she had worn since childhood, the symbol of the promised Luna. The moment his skin touched hers, pain flashed across his face. Real pain. His jaw tightened violently. Elara's breath caught. The mate bond reacted. Still alive. Impossible. A royal rejection ceremony should have weakened the bond instantly. Instead, the invisible tether between them pulled tighter beneath her ribs. Kael felt it too. She saw panic flicker through his eyes. Only for a second. Then the king buried it. With one sharp movement, he removed the moonstone from her throat. The arena erupted into applause. Elara nearly flinched. Not because they celebrated Seraphine, because they celebrated her humiliation. Kael stepped back immediately, as though distance itself relieved him. And for the first time in years, Elara understood something terrible. He was afraid of her. Seraphine smiled gently before approaching. "Mercy honors you, my king," she said sweetly. The crowd approved immediately. Elara wanted to hate her, but hatred required energy she no longer possessed. The high priestess lifted the ceremonial crown toward Seraphine. Then something impossible happened. The moon dimmed. A cold shadow swept across the arena. Every wolf froze. The torches flickered violently, and deep beneath the marble floor, something growled. Low. Ancien. Hungry. The sound vibrated through Elara's bones. Gasps exploded across the court. Several wolves shifted partially from instinct alone, claws ripping through skin. Kael's head snapped upward. The sky above the arena darkened unnaturally, as clouds swallowed the moon whole. Then all at once, every wolf in the arena lowered its head, not toward Kael, toward Elara. Silence crashed over the kingdom. Elara's heart pounded violently. No. A sharp burning sensation erupted beneath her ribs. She stumbled. Silver light flashed beneath her skin for one horrifying second, before vanishing again. The crowd recoiled immediately. She's cursed. The dead wolf moved. That's forbidden magic. Seraphine's beautiful expression tightened for the first time. Fear. Real fear. Kael moved instinctively toward Elara before stopping himself. That hesitation destroyed something inside her more completely than the rejection itself. Because for one brief moment, he had almost chosen her. Then the high priestess stepped backward in horror. "The moon mirror," she whispered shakily. "Bring the moon mirror now." The entire arena descended into chaos. And high above them, hidden behind storm clouds, the moon turned silver-white. The moon mirror arrived carried by 6 royal guards. No one spoke while they brought it into the arena. Even the wind seemed to retreat from it. The artifact was older than the kingdom itself, a circular disk of black obsidian framed in silver bone, tall enough to tower over any wolf standing before it. Ancient runes crawled along its edges like living scars. Moonlight moved strangely across its surface, refusing to settle. The elders claimed the mirror revealed truth beyond blood. Not appearances, not lies. Truth. That was why it had not been used in over a century. Royal courts survived through secrets, and secrets feared truth more than death. Elara stared at the mirror, while unease crawled slowly beneath her skin. Something inside her recognized it. Not consciously, not through memory. Deeper. Older. The same strange sensation she used to feel as a child, whenever she wandered too close to the abandoned northern shrines beneath the palace cliffs, as if unseen eyes watched her from somewhere beyond the world. The high priestess approached carefully. Her wrinkled hands trembled around her ceremonial staff. "By lunar decree," she announced shakily, "the rejected bond shall be judged before the mirror of Selene." Kyle's expression darkened instantly. No. The single word cracked through the arena like thunder. The entire court froze. The high priestess swallowed hard. "My king, the signs cannot be ignored." The moon itself reacted. Seraphine stepped gracefully beside the throne platform. Surely the crown would not fear truth. Kale turned toward her slowly. Something dangerous flickered behind his eyes. "You speak boldly for someone not yet crowned." For the first time since her arrival in the kingdom, Seraphine's composure slipped slightly. Only slightly. But Elara noticed. Kyle noticed too. And suddenly the tension between them felt wrong. Not like lovers. Not even allies. Like two predators pretending not to bare their teeth. Interesting. Very interesting. But before Elara could think further, pain twisted violently beneath her ribs again. She gasped softly. Silver light flashed under her skin. The court recoiled immediately. "She's possessed. No wolf should glow. The moon curse." Kale moved toward her instantly this time. Elara. Her name sounded different in his mouth now. Not cold. Not royal. Afraid? That frightened her more than the light itself. The royal alpha stopped only inches away. Close enough for her to feel heat radiating from his body despite the winter air. And again, pain crossed his face. Not emotional pain. Physical. The black veins beneath his wrists darkened visibly. Elara's breath caught. The mate bond was hurting him. No, not the bond. Something attached to it. Seraphine saw it too. Panic flashed across her beautiful features for less than a heartbeat before she buried it beneath practiced grace. "My king," she said carefully, "the mirror will reveal whether the rejected bond still poisons you." Poison. There. The word hung heavily between them. Kale's jaw tightened. So, the rumors were true. The court believed Elara's dead wolf was corrupting the royal alpha. How convenient for Seraphine. The high priestess raised her staff. "Elara Vane, place your hand upon the moon mirror." The arena waited. Elara should have refused. Every instinct screamed at her to run. But running would only confirm their fear. Slowly, she stepped forward. The chains around her wrists dragged softly across marble. Kale's voice stopped her halfway. "Do not touch it." Silence. The entire court turned toward their king in disbelief. Even Seraphine stiffened. Elara looked back at him. Moonlight carved harsh shadows across his face, revealing exhaustion beneath the power. His silver eyes burned intensely now, not with hatred, but with something far more dangerous. Conflict. He was trying to protect her, and he hated himself for it. "Why?" Seraphine asked softly. Kyle did not answer immediately. Because he could not. The truth was becoming visible. The closer Elara moved toward the moon mirror, the sicker he became. Dark veins spread higher along his throat now. His wolf was reacting violently. No one understood why, except perhaps Kale himself, and that terrified him. Seraphine approached carefully. If she is innocent, the mirror will prove it. Kale's eyes never left Elara. If she is not, he said quietly, the mirror may kill her. The arena erupted into whispers. Elara's stomach tightened. The moon mirror judged souls through lunar magic older than royal bloodlines. Most wolves survived contact with it easily, but forbidden creatures, corrupted beings, those touched by ancient magic, the mirror burned them alive, from the inside out. Seraphine's expression softened beautifully. Then perhaps we should finally learn what she truly is. There it was again, fear beneath the kindness. Seraphine did not merely dislike Elara. She feared her. Why? Elara had spent years powerless, silent, forgotten. So why did the future Luna look at her like a buried nightmare clawing back to life? The answer came suddenly, not through logic, through instinct. The moment Seraphine stepped closer, the invisible thing inside Elara recoiled violently, like an ancient beast smelling poison. Elara staggered backward, her vision blurred. For one terrible second, she saw something impossible. Silver chains, blood covering marble floors, a massive white wolf screaming beneath a shattered moon. Then the vision vanished. Elara. Kale's voice sounded distant now. The pain beneath her ribs intensified. No, not pain. Something waking. The moon mirror began to hum. Love. Resonant. Alive. The runes around its edges glowed faintly silver. Gasps spread through the court. That's impossible. It only reacts to royal blood. Seraphine stepped backward. Actually backward. Fear widened her eyes fully now. And suddenly Elara understood. The mirror recognized her. Not as cursed. Not as broken. As something else entirely. The high priestess looked horrified. Touch the mirror, she whispered. Elara raised her trembling hand slowly. Kyle grabbed her wrist before she could. The moment he touched her skin, agony tore through him. The royal alpha dropped to one knee. The entire arena gasped. Galdraven never knelt. Never. Black veins exploded across his throat while his breathing turned ragged. Elara. Iraspith. His wolf was dying. No, being killed. And somehow the bond connected it directly to her. Seraphine moved instantly. My king. She reached for him, and Kale snarled. The sound shook the arena. Not human. Wolf. Pure, murderous instinct. The royal alpha recoiled violently from Seraphine's touch like she carried fire beneath her skin. The crowd fell silent in horror. Kyle himself looked stunned by his own reaction. Seraphine froze, then quickly hid the fear returning to her face. Too late. Elara saw it clearly now. Seraphine was doing something to him. Something dark. Something forbidden. But before anyone could speak, the moon mirror suddenly cracked. A thin silver fracture spread across the black glass. The arena exploded into panic. No. The seal. Move away from it. Ancient magic poured from the fracture like moonlight spilling through broken stone. And from somewhere deep beneath the palace, a wolf howl answered. Not normal. Not mortel. Ancien. The sound rolled through the kingdom, like a forgotten god waking beneath the earth. Every wolf in the arena dropped instantly to one knee. Every wolf except Kyle. And Elara. The high priestess stared at her, in absolute terror. That howl, she whispered. It cannot be. Then the moon emerged from the storm clouds overhead. Silver white. Brilliant. And for the first time in her life, Elara felt a heartbeat answer inside her soul. The heartbeat came again. Slow. Massive. Ancient. Beyond comprehension. Elara staggered backward as it echoed through her ribs like something buried deep beneath ice finally beginning to breathe. The sensation was so overwhelming she nearly collapsed. For 23 years there had been only silence inside her soul. Empty stillness. Deadness. Every healer, priestess, and elder in the kingdom had sworn her wolf was gone forever. But dead things did not awaken. Dead things did not answer the moon. The heartbeat thundered once more, and every wolf in the arena whimpered. Not from fear, alone. Recognition. The realization spread through the court slowly, horribly, like floodwater rising beneath a locked door. Wolves lowered their eyes. Warriors trembled. Several noblewomen began crying without understanding why. Even the royal guards backed away from Elara. The moon mirror continued cracking. Thin silver fractures spread rapidly across the obsidian surface, while pale light leaked from inside it like trapped starlight. Ancient runes along the edges pulsed brighter with every heartbeat. The high priestess looked close to fainting. "Seal it," one council member hissed. "Seal it immediately. You cannot seal awakened lunar magic," another whispered back. Kael rose unsteadily to his feet. Blood darkened the corner of his mouth. Elara's stomach tightened. The black veins had spread fully across his throat now. Whatever curse poisoned him was worsening, and somehow, her awakening affected it. Kael wiped the blood away before anyone else noticed. But Elara saw. She always saw. His silver eyes locked onto hers across the arena. "What are you?" he asked quietly. Not cruelly, not accusingly, as if he genuinely no longer knew. The question pierced deeper than the rejection itself. Because once, long ago, he had known her better than anyone. Before crowns, before politics, before fear. Elara opened her mouth to answer. Nothing came out. How could she explain something she did not understand herself? The heartbeat inside her pulsed again, and suddenly the torches surrounding the arena extinguished all at once. Darkness swallowed the court. Screams erupted instantly. Only moonlight remained, silver white and blinding. It poured directly onto Elara, like the sky itself had chosen her from among thousands. The moment the light touched her skin, ancient symbols ignited across the marble floor beneath her feet. Gasps spread through the darkness. No, that crest. It was erased from the kingdom. The glowing symbol beneath Elara stretched enormous and intricate, an ancient wolf, surrounded by crescent moons and thorned stars. Kael stared at it in horror. He recognized it. Of course he did. Every royal heir knew the forbidden histories. The celestial wolf queen, the ruler whose bloodline had vanished 500 years ago during the Moonfall War. The queen whose wolves commanded the night itself. The queen the old kings had feared so deeply they erased her name from every royal archive. Impossible. Seraphine understood it too, and for the first time since entering the kingdom, she completely lost control. "Kill her," she whispered. No one moved. Her voice sharpened violently. "Kill her now." The command shattered through the arena. Royal guards hesitated, only briefly before silver spears lowered toward Elara from every direction. Kael moved instantly. "Stand down." The order exploded with alpha authority. The guards froze, but Seraphine stepped forward furiously. "You saw the crest. She carries forbidden blood." Kael rounded on her slowly. "And you knew." Silence. The accusation landed harder than a strike. Seraphine's face paled. "You knew what she was before coming here," Kael said quietly. The entire court listened now. Every noble, every priestess, every rival alpha. Kael's voice lowered dangerously. "That is why you pushed for the moon mirror." Seraphine recovered quickly. Too quickly. She bewitched the moon itself. "Are you blind to what stands before you?" "No," Kael said. "I think I am finally beginning to see." The words hit Elara strangely hard, because despite everything, a small part of her still wanted him to choose her. Weakness. Dangerous weakness. The arena trembled suddenly. A deep roar echoed beneath the marble floor. Cracks split through the stone. People screamed as several nobles fell backward from collapsing steps. Wolves shifted instinctively in panic. Guards raised weapons toward the arena floor itself. Then the earth broke open. Silver light exploded upward. A massive skeletal structure emerged from beneath the ancient marble bones larger than war horses, glowing faintly beneath centuries of dust. The court recoiled in horror. A wolf grave? No, the high priestess whispered. Her face had gone completely white. That is not a grave. The enormous skull lifted slowly from the broken earth. Ancient silver fire ignited inside its empty eyes. Alive, the dead wolf skeleton rose from beneath the arena, while moonlight poured through its ribs like liquid starlight. Every wolf present dropped instantly to their knees except Kael and Elara. The creature lowered its colossal skull toward her. Not threatening. Reverent. Elara's pulse pounded violently. The heartbeat inside her answered the beast beneath the earth. Then, suddenly, a memory slammed into her mind. Not her memory. Someone else's. Silver forests burning beneath black skies. Thousands of wolves kneeling before a woman cloaked in moonlight. A gigantic white wolf tearing through armies, while stars rained from the heavens. And a voice. Female. Ancien. You were never empty, little moon. Elara gasped sharply. The vision vanished. The skeletal wolf before her bowed its head fully. The court erupted into chaos. The dead beast obeys her. She controls ancient spirits. Monster. Moon. Witch. Several council members immediately began shouting for execution. Others backed away in terrified silence. One old alpha fell to his knees completely and whispered, "The White Queen has returned." Seraphine's breathing turned uneven. Fear consumed her composure now. Good. For the first time in years, Elara wanted someone else to feel afraid instead of her. Kael slowly approached through the chaos. Every step looked painful. His wolf was weakening rapidly, yet still he came toward her. "Elara," he said carefully. "Look at me." She did. Moonlight reflected across his face, while the kingdom crumbled around them. "You need to leave this place." The words surprised her. "You still believe I'm dangerous?" Kael's jaw tightened. "I believe everyone else here is." A strange ache spread through her chest. Because despite rejecting her, despite humiliating her before the kingdom, he was trying to protect her now. Too late. Far too late. Before Elara could answer, Seraphine screamed. Everyone turned. The false Luna stood near the cracked moon mirror, clutching her wrist in horror. Black smoke crawled beneath her skin, like living veins. The mirror was reacting to her. "No," Seraphine whispered shakily. The high priestess stared in realization. Forbidden magic. The mirror recognized forbidden magic. Kael's expression darkened instantly. Then the truth struck him all at once. The sickness poisoning his wolf. The false mate bond. The black veins. Seraphine. Rage rolled off the royal alpha so violently the entire arena trembled. "You," he said softly. That single word carried murder inside it. Seraphine panicked, and panic destroyed the last mask she wore. "You were dying before I came," she snapped. "Your bloodline is weak. Your wolf is rotting from inside your bones." The court fell silent. Kael's face became terrifyingly calm. Seraphine pointed at Elara desperately. "She is the real danger. The prophecy warned us." "What prophecy?" Kael demanded. Too late. Seraphine realized her mistake instantly. But the damage was done. The entire court heard it. There was a prophecy, and somehow it involved Elara. The arena fell into a silence so complete that even the winter wind seemed afraid to move. Kael stared at Seraphine with the stillness of a wolf moments before tearing out a throat. "What prophecy?" he repeated. This time the words were quieter, deadlier. Seraphine's chest rose unevenly beneath her white ceremonial gown. For the first time since entering the royal court, she looked cornered, not graceful, not untouchable. Woman, and terrified. The cracked moon mirror pulsed violently behind her, silver fractures spreading wider across the obsidian surface, while black smoke curled from her trembling fingers. The high priestess stepped backward slowly. "You touched shadow rites," she whispered. Seraphine turned sharply. "You knew what would happen if she awakened." Gasps spread through the nobles. Awakened. Not cursed, not corrupted, awakened. The distinction changed everything. Kael's eyes darkened further. You manipulated the bond, he said. It was not a question anymore. Seraphine laughed suddenly, though the sound shook at the edges. Manipulated? She echoed. I saved your throne. You poisoned me. You were already dying. The words struck harder than any weapon. Even the council looked stunned now. Kael did not react visibly, but Elara saw his hand tighten slowly at his side. The black veins beneath his skin had spread past his throat now, crawling beneath his jaw like living corruption. The Royal Alpha truly was dying, and somehow everyone closest to him had allowed it to happen. Seraphine pointed toward Elara with shaking fury. Ask your precious dead wolf what happens when the celestial bloodline rises again. The skeletal wolf spirit beneath the arena released another deep howl. The marble floor trembled violently. Several nobles screamed. Elara barely heard them. Her pulse thundered too loudly now. Celestial bloodline. The words stirred something ancient inside her mind. Images flickered again behind her eyes. Moonlit armies, silver forests, a throne carved into mountain ice, and a woman standing alone beneath a shattered sky, while wolves bowed around her. Not vision. Memories. Impossible memories. The high priestess suddenly fell to one knee before Elara. The movement shocked the entire arena. My lady, the old woman whispered hoarsely. Elara stared at her in disbelief. My lady? The priestess lifted trembling eyes. 5 centuries ago, the White Celestial Queen vanished during the Moonfall War. The old kings claimed her bloodline died beside her. Seraphine shouted immediately. Because it should have. Kael's gaze snapped toward the priestess. Explain. The old woman looked terrified to speak, but more terrified not to. The celestial wolves were not ordinary shifters, she whispered. They were lunar sovereigns. Wolves touched directly by the goddess herself. A murmur spread through the crowd. Every wolf child knew fragments of the old legends. Celestial wolves who crossed battlefields without leaving tracks. Queens who commanded beasts with a glance. Moonfire that could burn armies to ash. Ancient myths. Fairy tales. Not real. Except the skeletal wolf spirit kneeling before Elara made denial impossible now. The royal bloodlines feared them. The priestess continued shakily. The celestial queen became too powerful, too beloved. The kingdoms believed she would eventually rule them all. So they murdered her, Elara said quietly. The priestess lowered her eyes. No one denied it. Cold realization spread through Elara slowly. Her entire life suddenly made terrible sense. The silence inside her soul. The dead wolf. The fear surrounding her existence. They had not failed to understand her. They had hidden her, buried her, erased her bloodline so completely that even she believed herself broken. Kael looked at her differently now. Not with pity, not even fear. Recognition, like pieces of an impossible puzzle, finally locking together inside his mind. That's why the bond never broke, he said softly. The moment the words left him, the arena shifted uneasily, because everyone understood the implication. If the bond still lived, then the goddess herself had rejected Kael's public rejection. Seraphine's face twisted with desperation. The prophecy warned us exactly this would happen. Kael turned slowly. Then tell me the prophecy. No. The answer came instantly. Too instantly. Kael stepped toward her. His presence alone made nearby wolves retreat. I am your king, and you are already compromised, Seraphine shouted. Can't you feel what she's doing to you? Kael's breathing roughened. For a moment, Elara feared he might collapse. The corruption inside him was worsening rapidly, now that Seraphine's control over the bond had weakened. But then Kael said something that silenced the arena entirely. I only began dying after you arrived. Seraphine froze. The court erupted into horrified whispers. The Royal Alpha continued advancing toward her slowly. You claimed Elara's dead wolf poisoned the bond, he said. Yet my wolf recoils from your touch. Seraphine backed away. You don't understand what she is. Then help me understand. You cannot survive her. The words echoed strangely, not like a threat, like grief. Kale noticed too. His eyes narrowed slightly. Then suddenly, Elara smelled blood. Sharp, fresh. Kale staggered violently. Dark blood spilled from his mouth onto the white marble floor. The arena exploded into panic. My king, protect the alpha. Kale dropped to one knee. One hand braced against the cracked stone, while agony twisted across his face. His wolf was losing control now. No, fighting something. The black veins spread rapidly beneath his skin. Seraphine's fear deepened instantly, because this was not supposed to happen. Without thinking, Elara ran toward him. Guards moved to stop her, but the skeletal wolf spirit roared. The sound shattered nearby pillars. Every guard froze instantly. Elara reached Kyle, just as his body shook violently. His silver eyes flashed wolf gold for a terrifying second. "Don't touch me," he rasped. But Elara ignored him. The moment her hand pressed against his chest, the corruption stopped spreading. The entire arena went still. Kale's breathing steadied instantly beneath her palm. The black veins halted, not healed, contained. Shock flooded his expression. Elara felt it too. The mate bond pulsed powerfully between them now, stronger than it had ever been in her entire life. Alive, ancien, real. And beneath it, something else stirred. Her heartbeat answered his. The celestial force inside her recognized him. Not as enemy, not as king. Mate. Seraphine stared in horror. No. The cracked moon mirror suddenly blazed silver white. Ancient runes erupted across its surface. Then words appeared inside the glass itself. Not written. Burned. The false bride carries shadow. The Moon Queen has returned. Screams erupted throughout the court. Several nobles dropped to their knees immediately. Others backed away from Elara, like she might destroy them all. Kale slowly lifted his eyes toward her, and for the first time since childhood, she saw no rejection in them, only devastating realization. He had cast aside his true mate before the entire kingdom, and the moon itself had witnessed it. Seraphine's expression broke completely. "You fools," she whispered. Then suddenly, she smiled. The change was horrifying. Not graceful anymore. Not noble. Mud. You still think this story ends with her crowned? The torches around the arena reignited instantly. Black, dark fire exploded across the marble floor. The crowd screamed as shadow symbols spread through the arena walls like infection. Ancient magic. Forbidden magic. Seraphine raised her hands toward the storm-dark sky, while black veins crawled fully across her body. "You were all so desperate for salvation," she laughed shakily. "You never noticed the kingdom was already cursed." The earth beneath the palace shook violently, and somewhere, deep below the mountain, something enormous woke up. The scream came from beneath the kingdom. Not human, not wolf, something older. The entire crescent arena shook violently as cracks split through the marble walls. Noblewomen stumbled from collapsing balconies while guards shouted desperately for evacuation. Black fire crawled across the ancient stone like living veins, swallowing royal banners and turning silver moonlight crimson. And at the center of the chaos stood Seraphine Vale, smiling through tears. "You were too late," she whispered. Kale forced himself upright, despite the blood staining his mouth. His body still trembled from the corruption inside him, but the moment Elara touched him, the spreading darkness slowed again. Not gone, held back, like her presence itself stood between him and death. Seraphine noticed. Hatred twisted across her face, instantly. "She already owns your wolf," she spat. Kyle's eyes never left Elara. "No," he said quietly. The mate bond pulsed hard between them. Ancien, violent, unbreakable. She saved it. The words struck Elara harder than she expected, because he finally understood. Not completely. Not enough. But enough to see the truth buried beneath years of lies. The Royal Alpha had never weakened because of her. He had weakened because someone poisoned the sacred bond itself. And Seraphine had done it slowly, carefully, like a knife sliding deeper 1 inch at a time. The black flames around the arena surged higher. The crowd panicked fully now. Get the council out. The mountain is collapsing. Seal the lower gates. But the lower gates were already opening on their own. A deep, grinding roar echoed beneath the palace, as ancient stone doors hidden beneath the arena slowly separated. Dust exploded upward from the darkness below. Cold air flooded the arena, air that smelled of old blood, old death, old magic. The high priestess stared toward the opening in horror. "No," she whispered. "The catacombs." Seraphine laughed softly. The royal family buried more than bones beneath this mountain. KL stepped protectively in front of Elara. Even now, even after publicly rejecting her, even after humiliating her before the kingdom, his instinct still moved toward protecting her first. Elara hated how much that hurt, and how much it still mattered. "What did you awaken?" Kale demanded. Seraphine looked at him almost sadly. The truth. The ground exploded. A massive claw burst through the stone floor below the arena. Screams ripped through the court. The creature that emerged from the darkness looked like a wolf once, long ago. Now, it was something twisted by centuries of corruption. Its body towered over the arena, covered in blackened fur split open by glowing red fractures beneath the flesh. Bone spikes protruded from its spine. Chains wrapped around its enormous limbs, dragging broken pieces of ancient ruins behind it. And its eyes were silver, royal silver. Coil van still. "No," he breathed. The beast looked directly at him. Recognition passed between them instantly. The crowd realized it seconds later. "That's impossible. The old king killed it. It can't be." But Elara already understood. This creature had once belonged to the royal bloodline. A royal wolf. Corrupted. Imprisoned. Forgotten. The beast roared. The sound shattered glass throughout the palace. Several weaker wolves collapsed instantly from terror alone. Seraphine spread her arms toward the monster. "This is what your precious royal blood became," she shouted toward the court. "Your kings slaughtered the celestial line and poisoned the goddess herself." The corrupted wolf lunged. Kael shoved Elara aside just before the beast crashed through the marble where they stood. Stone exploded everywhere. The royal alpha shifted partially mid-motion, black claws tearing through his hands as he slammed into the creature's neck. The arena erupted into chaos around them. Kyle's wolf form was enormous, even unfinished. Dark fur, silver eyes, terrifying strength. But something was wrong. The corruption weakened him visibly now. Black veins spread beneath his skin every time he used his power. The beast threw him violently across the arena. Kale smashed through a stone pillar hard enough to crack it in half. "Elara!" someone screamed. She turned just in time to see collapsing debris crashing toward a group of servant children trapped near the lower steps. Without thinking, she ran. Not toward safety. Toward them. The first stone struck her shoulder painfully, but she forced herself forward through falling debris. The children cried in terror while black fire spread closer around them. "It's all right," she whispered shakily. "Stay behind me." The mountain trembled again. A massive section of the ceiling broke loose overhead. Too large to escape. Too fast. The children screamed. Elara lifted her arms. Instinctively, silver light exploded from her body. Moonfire erupted upward like a storm. The falling debris froze in midair. The entire arena went silent. Elara stared upward in shock. Massive chunks of stone hovered weightlessly above her glowing hands, while silver-white energy spiraled through the air around her body. The moon itself seemed brighter now, closer, watching. One of the servant children whispered fearfully, "You're the Moon Queen." The stones slowly drifted aside harmlessly. Gasps spread across the arena. No wolf magic could do that. Not alpha power. Not priestess magic. Something far older answered her now. Kael saw it too. He had risen again despite the blood pouring from his injuries, and for one suspended moment he simply stared at her. Not as a rejected bride. Not as a broken girl. As something magnificent, dangerous, sacred. The corrupted beast roared again and charged directly toward Elara. Kyle moved instantly. So did the skeletal celestial wolf spirit beneath the arena. The two wolves collided with the corrupted monster at the same moment, shaking the entire mountain. Silver and black magic exploded outward violently. Elara's heartbeat thundered again. The visions returned harder this time. A war beneath shattered moons. A white wolf queen bleeding across frozen stone. A royal king driving silver blades through celestial hearts. Betrayal. Massacre. Extinction. And one final truth whispered through memory itself. The celestial queen was never killed by enemies. She was murdered by her mate. Elara gasped sharply. The vision vanished. Her knees nearly buckled beneath her. No, that couldn't be. But somewhere deep inside her awakening soul, ancient grief answered. Kale looked toward her immediately. Elara? She stared at him differently now. Not because he betrayed her, because his bloodline already had once before. And suddenly she understood why the old royal families feared the celestial wolves so deeply. Not because they were monsters, because they were stronger than kings. The corrupted beast slammed Kyle violently across the arena again. This time he did not rise immediately. Blood spread beneath him. The black corruption surged wildly through his veins now. Seraphine smiled through the destruction. He cannot survive both bonds, she whispered. Elara turned sharply. What? Seraphine's eyes gleamed darkly. The false bond is killing him. But if the true mate bond fully awakens, she smiled wider. The celestial queen will consume him instead. Silence. The words struck like ice through Elara's chest. Kale's prophecy. His true mate would destroy him. That was the secret everyone feared. Not because she would betray him, because loving her would kill him. And suddenly Elara understood why Kale had pushed her away for so long. Not hatred, fear. The mountain continued shaking around them. Stone cracked overhead, while black fire consumed the upper balconies of the Crescent Arena. Nobles fled, screaming through smoke-filled corridors. Wolves shifted in panic. Royal guards dragged injured survivors away from collapsing pillars. But Elara heard none of it clearly anymore. Only Seraphine's words. If the true mate bond fully awakens, the celestial queen will consume him instead. Her chest tightened painfully. Kyle had known. Maybe not everything, but enough. Enough to fear what she truly was. Enough to reject her before the entire kingdom rather than risk awakening the bond completely. The realization hurt worse than humiliation ever could, because part of him had tried to protect her, and part of him had tried to survive her. Kale forced himself upright again across the shattered arena. Blood ran from his mouth onto broken marble, while the corruption beneath his skin darkened further. His wolf was fighting to stay alive now. The corrupted beast stalked toward him slowly through drifting ash. Massive, ancien, royal silver eyes glowing through blackened flesh. The creature was not merely attacking him. It recognized him, hated him. The skeletal celestial wolf spirit growled low beside Elara protectively, silver fire burning brighter within its bones. Two ancient bloodlines, two old enemies. The mountain itself seemed to remember their war. Kale wiped blood from his mouth roughly before lifting his gaze toward Seraphine. What prophecy? He demanded again. This time, his voice cracked with fury. Seraphine looked exhausted suddenly, not triumphant anymore. Tired, like someone carrying a burden too long. The moonfall prophecy, she whispered. The first royal kings sealed it after the celestial massacre. The high priestess paled visibly. You swore never to speak it aloud, she hissed. Seraphine laughed bitterly, and look what silence accomplished. The corrupted beast roared again behind Kyle, but strangely did not attack immediately now. It watched, listening, waiting. Seraphine's eyes slowly found Elara. When the celestial queen returns, she whispered, the king bound to her soul shall either kneel beside her. Her voice trembled, or die beneath her rising. The words settled over the arena, like a death sentence. Kyle went completely still. Elara's stomach twisted violently. The mate bond between them pulsed again. Stronger now, every heartbeat tightening it further. Ancient lunar power crawled beneath her skin like awakening fire, and each pulse weakened Kyle. No wonder he feared her. No wonder the court buried the prophecy. The Celestial Queen's mate did not simply love her. He surrendered himself to her completely. Body, soul, Wolf. If he resisted, the bond destroyed him. Kyle's jaw tightened slowly. You knew this before coming here. Seraphine nodded once. My family guarded the prophecy for generations. And instead of warning me, Kale said softly, you poisoned me. Pain flickered across Seraphine's face. You think I wanted this? She snapped. You think I enjoyed becoming a shadow witch to stop another celestial war? The court recoiled immediately. Shadow witch. The confession hit like lightning. Forbidden magic, older than the kingdom itself. Magic that fed on corrupted mate bonds and dying wolves. Seraphine's hands trembled now, as black veins spread across her pale skin. The Celestial Queen destroys kingdoms, she whispered. History already proved it. No, Elara said quietly. Everyone looked at her. The visions inside her had become clearer now. Not complete. Fragments. But enough. I saw the war, she whispered. The celestial wolves didn't start it. The high priestess closed her eyes. Because she knew. The royal bloodlines erased history. Not to hide victory. To hide guilt. The first kings slaughtered the celestial line because they feared losing control of the kingdoms. The Moonfall War had been genocide, disguised as salvation. The skeletal wolf spirit beside Elara lowered its massive head gently. Note. Monster. Guardian. Protector. Kyle looked at her across the burning arena, and for the first time since childhood, there was no wall between them. Only truth. Painful truth. Elara, he said carefully. Listen to me. His voice sounded strained now. Weaker. The corruption was spreading faster. Because the true bond was awakening. She realized the horrifying balance immediately. The false bond had poisoned him slowly. But the true bond was overwhelming his wolf entirely. His body could not survive both at once. Elara, Kale repeated. She stepped toward him instinctively. The mate bond pulled hard between them now. Almost physical. The moment she moved closer, Kale sucked in a sharp breath like the connection itself hurt. Yet he did not step away. Not this time. You need to leave the kingdom, he said. The words stunned her. What? If the bond fully awakens here. His breathing roughened. The court will never stop hunting you. And you? Silence. That silence answered enough. Kale already believed he was dying. Not feared. Not possibly. Certain. The realization shattered something inside her chest. Because despite everything, despite the rejection, despite the humiliation, he was still trying to save her before himself. The corrupted beast suddenly lunged again. Kale turned instantly, shifting further this time. Bones cracked violently. Dark fur burst across his skin, while silver eyes burned wolf-bright. But midway through the transformation, he screamed. Black corruption exploded across his chest. His wolf collapsed, partially formed. The arena shook from the force of his pain. Elara, the high priestess whispered in horror. The bond is tearing him apart. The skeletal celestial wolf roared furiously. Moonfire spiraled violently around Elara's body in response. Her emotions were feeding the awakening now. Fear, grief, love. The realization came suddenly and mercilessly. She still loved him, even after everything. Even after he shattered her publicly before the kingdom. And perhaps that was the cruelest wound of all. Kyle struggled to rise again, breathing raggedly now. Elara, Eraspid. She ran toward him before thinking. The moment her hands touched his face, the entire arena exploded with silver light. The mate bond awakened fully. Every wolf in the kingdom felt it. Somewhere beyond the palace walls, thousands of wolves howled simultaneously into the storm-dark sky. The moon above the arena turned blinding white. Ancient symbols ignited across Elara's skin. And Kale, Kale gasped like a drowning man finally breathing air. The corruption stopped completely. Not slowed. Stopped. The black veins froze beneath his skin, while silver moonlight spread through them instead, healing him. The entire court stared in shock. The prophecy was wrong, or incomplete. Seraphine looked horrified. That's impossible. Kale slowly lifted trembling hands toward Elara's face, not because the bond forced him, because he wanted to. You, he whispered. His voice broke softly. You were never killing me. Elara's silver-gray eyes widened. The truth struck both of them together. The true mate bond was not destroying him. It was cleansing the corruption, poisoning his royal blood. Seraphine staggered backward. No, she whispered shakily. No, the prophecy. You misunderstood it. The high priestess breathed. The old woman stared at Elara in awe now. The king does die beneath the celestial queen. Her voice trembled. But only the corrupted king, Kyle, understood immediately. The prophecy never meant physical death. The bond destroyed the false, poisoned version of the king, the broken wolf, the corrupted blood, and rebuilt what remained. Seraphine's entire plan collapsed in that instant. Panic consumed her completely. The Shadow Witch screamed. Black fire exploded outward from her body, violently. If the kingdoms would rather kneel to monsters, she cried, then let them burn with one. The mountain roared beneath them, and far below the palace, something much worse than the corrupted beast finally awakened. The scream beneath the mountain did not sound alive. It sounded ancient, like stone grinding against stone deep beneath the earth, like chains dragged across forgotten graves. The entire palace shook violently as cracks split through the arena walls from floor to ceiling. Towers trembled. Chandeliers crashed from vaulted ceilings somewhere beyond the court. Wolves throughout the kingdom began howling in terror. Not battle cries. Warnings. Seraphine stood at the center of the black flames, breathing unevenly, while shadow magic spiraled around her body like living smoke. The beautiful noblewoman the court once worshipped was gone now. Darkness crawled beneath her skin in branching veins, staining her pale throat and hands. But worse than the corruption was the grief in her eyes. Elara noticed it immediately, because Seraphine was not smiling anymore. She looked horrified by what she had awakened. You don't understand, she whispered shakily. I never meant for that to wake. Another deafening roar thundered beneath the mountain. The corrupted royal beast suddenly recoiled in fear. Fear. That alone terrified the court more than anything else had. If the chained monster feared whatever lived below them, then the kingdom was already doomed. Kale pulled Elara protectively behind him despite his weakened state. His wolf aura surged violently through the shattered arena now, stronger than before. The true mate bond had stabilized him, cleansing the poison from his blood little by little, but not fast enough. The corruption still lingered beneath his skin, like scars left by shadow magic. What did you do? Kale demanded. Seraphine looked toward the opening catacombs beneath the arena. Tears filled her eyes. I broke the seal. The high priestess went pale as death. No? Seraphine laughed bitterly through trembling breaths. My family guarded the Moonfall catacombs for generations. We were taught that the celestial bloodline would return one day and destroy the kingdoms. She looked directly at Elara, so we were ordered to stop her before she awakened. Elara's chest tightened. Not hatred. Not entirely. Because suddenly she understood. Seraphine had not grown up hearing stories about monsters. She had grown up hearing stories about Elara, a celestial queen who would drown kingdoms in moonfire, a bloodline capable of overthrowing kings. Fear had shaped her long before ambition did. But the prophecy lied, Seraphine whispered brokenly. Or maybe the kings lied about the prophecy. The mountain shook again. This time the roar beneath them sounded closer. Much closer. The skeletal celestial wolf beside Elara lifted its massive skull toward the darkness beneath the arena and growled deeply. Warning. Kale's expression hardened instantly. Evacuate the court, he ordered the royal guards. Several hesitated. Not from disobedience, from terror. The Royal Alpha's voice exploded across the arena, with full command power. "Move!" The guards scattered immediately, dragging nobles and servants toward the upper exits, while panic consumed the palace fully now. Smoke filled the air. Stone continued collapsing around them. Somewhere beyond the arena, bells began ringing throughout the kingdom. War bells. Elara looked toward the catacomb opening. Cold silver wind poured upward from the darkness now, and with it came whispers, not spoken aloud. Inside her mind, ancient voices calling her name. "Moon Queen." Daughter returned. "Open the gate." She staggered slightly. Kale caught her instantly. His hands gripped her shoulders carefully, almost afraid she might disappear. "Elara." His voice grounded her immediately. The whispers weakened. Kale searched her face with growing concern. "What do you hear?" Before she could answer, the earth exploded upward. The arena floor shattered completely, as something enormous erupted from beneath the mountain. Screams echoed through the palace. The creature rising from the catacombs dwarfed even the corrupted royal beast. At first, Elara thought it was another wolf. Then she saw the wings. Massive skeletal wings covered in torn black feathers spread across the ruined arena, blotting out moonlight entirely. Chains the size of ship anchors dragged behind the creature's body. Its fur was pale beneath centuries of dried blood, but corruption had twisted it into something monstrous, and its face was almost human. The court froze in absolute horror. The high priestess collapsed to her knees. The first king. The creature had once been king. That truth was unmistakable now. A crown of broken silver remained fused into its skull. Ancient royal markings covered its body, and its eyes. Empty silver eyes burned with endless hatred. The first king of the wolf kingdoms. The man who murdered the celestial queen. Still alive somehow. No, not alive. Cursed. The beast opened its mouth and spoke. "Selene." The ancient voice shook the arena. "Elara Froze." Not Elara. Selene. The name from her visions. The original celestial queen. Memory crashed into her violently. Blood on snow. The first king, kneeling before a white wolf queen. Love. Betrayal. Silver blades piercing her heart while armies burned around them. Elara gasped sharply. The first king stared directly at her. "You returned." KL immediately stepped in front of her. The cursed king beast laughed. A horrible sound. "You carry his blood," the creature told Kale. "The blood of cowards." Kyle's claws extended instantly. "You murdered her." The creature's expression twisted. "No," it snarled. "I tried to save the kingdoms." The skeletal, celestial wolf roared furiously beside Elara. The cursed king answered with equal rage. "Ancient ennemi, ancient war." Still unfinished after 500 years. Seraphine stared at the monstrous king in disbelief. This wasn't supposed to happen. The creature turned toward her slowly. "You opened my prison, little witch." Real fear entered Seraphine's eyes then, because she finally understood. She had never controlled the shadow magic. The shadow magic had controlled her. The cursed king spread his ruined wings fully. Black storm clouds churned violently above the shattered palace in response. "The celestial queen returns," he growled, "and the kingdoms will drown in war again." KL moved protectively, closer to Elara. But this time, she stepped beside him instead of behind him. The movement stunned the remaining court members watching from the upper exits. Not because she challenged the creature, because the Royal Alpha allowed it. KL glanced toward her briefly. For one suspended moment beneath the burning sky, they stood together as equals. King, queen. The mate bond pulsed powerfully between them now. Ancient silver light spiraled around their bodies. The cursed first king saw it immediately, and hatred exploded across his monstrous face. "You bonded her bloodline again?" he roared. "After everything?" Kale's voice remained cold. "I'm beginning to suspect your version of history omitted certain details." The creature lunged. The shattered arena exploded into battle. The skeletal celestial wolf collided with the cursed king midair, while black and silver magic detonated across the mountain. Kyle shifted fully at last, his massive dark wolf bursting free through moonlight and smoke. But unlike before, the corruption no longer dominated him. Silver markings now glowed faintly through his dark fur. The true mate bond was transforming him, healing him, claiming him. The cursed king saw it too. And suddenly, the ancient monster looked afraid. The battle shattered the mountain. Ancient wolves collided beneath storm-dark skies while black fire and silver moonlight tore through the ruined arena. The skeletal celestial guardian crashed into the cursed first king with enough force to collapse entire sections of the palace wall. Stone exploded outward into the night. Nobles screamed from distant corridors while royal guards fought desperately to evacuate survivors. And above the chaos, the moon watched, huge, white, awake. Kael's transformed wolf landed beside Elara with a violent growl. Dark fur rippling beneath glowing silver markings now burning through his body like sacred scars. His massive form towered over her protectively, eyes fixed on the cursed king across the broken arena. But Elara barely noticed the destruction anymore. The memories were becoming clearer, too clear. The first king's voice echoed inside her skull, long before his monstrous mouth opened again. You remember now, don't you? Elara staggered. Fragments flooded her mind. A frozen throne room, hands intertwined beneath moonlight. A king kneeling before a celestial queen not in hatred, but love. The realization hit like a blade through her chest. The first king had once been Celine's mate. No, Elara whispered. The cursed creature laughed bitterly. That is the truth your kingdom's buried. Kael's wolf snarled violently. The ancient king turned toward him, with endless fury burning in his silver eyes. Your bloodline rewrote history because they feared what truly happened. Elara's breathing became uneven. The visions continued. Celine standing beside the first king, while wolves from every kingdom bowed before them both. Peace. Unity. The kingdoms had once been united under their bond, until something destroyed it. Elara. Kael's voice echoed through the mate bond, not spoken aloud. Inside her. The connection startled her. His wolf had learned to reach her soul directly now. You need to stay focused. But Elara could barely breathe, because she could feel Celine's emotions now. Not fully. Not completely. Enough. Love. Grief. Betrayal so devastating it poisoned entire bloodlines for centuries. The cursed king spread his ruined wings slowly. She was never meant to rule alone, he growled. The moon bound us together. Kael stepped closer to Elara protectively. Then why kill her? The monster froze. Silence spread briefly across the shattered arena. And suddenly, the creature looked tired. Anciently tired. I did not kill her, he whispered. The words shook the mountain harder than his roar ever had. Elara stared at him. The first king slowly lowered his monstrous head. She chose death herself. The world seemed to stop. Kael's wolf form stiffened instantly. Even the celestial guardian hesitated. No, the high priestess whispered somewhere behind them. That's impossible. But Elara already knew, because the memories flooding her soul answered him. Celine standing beneath a broken moon while kingdoms burned around her. The first king begging her not to leave. Silver blades forged from celestial bone, and shadow magic spreading across the world like disease. The war had not begun because the king betrayed Celine. It began because someone corrupted the mate bond between them, just like Seraphine corrupted Kael's. History was repeating itself. Elara turned sharply towards Seraphine. The Shadow Witch stood frozen near the shattered moon mirror. Horror consuming her expression as realization finally struck her too. The first king looked toward her with hatred. The shadow priests promised salvation, he growled. They whispered that celestial wolves would enslave mankind beneath lunar rule. Black smoke curled violently around Seraphine's trembling hands. My ancestors said the celestial queen became corrupted. They lied. The cursed king's voice shook with fury now. They poisoned our bond, turned kingdoms against each other, And when Selene realized the corruption would spread endlessly through every bonded bloodline, pain twisted across the ancient creature's face. She sacrificed herself to stop it. The arena fell silent. Elara's chest hurt so badly she could barely stand, because deep inside her soul, Selene remembered dying, not murdered, choosing death, choosing to tear herself away from the first king before the corruption consumed them both. The mate bond between them shattered violently, and the king never survived losing her. Not truly. The shadow corruption transformed him into this monster imprisoned beneath the mountain for 5 centuries. KL slowly shifted back into human form beside Elara despite the blood still staining his skin. Moonlight reflected across his bare shoulders and dark hair, while silver markings glowed faintly beneath his flesh now. He looked at the first king differently, not with hatred anymore. Understanding. "You loved her," Kyle said quietly. The cursed king laughed once. "Broken. I worshipped her." The honesty in those words shattered something inside Elara, because suddenly she understood the true horror of the prophecy. Not that the celestial queen destroyed kings, that kings destroyed themselves trying to survive loving her. Kale looked toward Elara slowly then, and she saw the fear returning to his eyes. Not fear of her power, fear of losing himself to her, fear of becoming the first king, all over again. The mate bond pulsed painfully between them. He felt it too, the growing intensity, the dangerous depth of it, the kind of love capable of unraveling kingdoms. "Elara," Kyle whispered. But before he could say more, Seraphine screamed. Black magic exploded outward violently from her body. "No," she cried. "You're lying. The prophecy promised she would destroy the kingdoms." The cursed king turned toward her coldly. "She will," he said. "Silence. Even Elara frozi." The ancient king pointed directly at Kale. "Because every kingdom will kneel or burn before a king willing to love her openly." The truth struck instantly. The danger was never Elara alone. It was what kingdoms would do in response to her return. Civil. Wa. Fear. Rebellion. The old bloodlines would never accept a celestial queen beside the throne again. KL understood too. And still, he stepped closer to her. Seraphine stared at him in disbelief. "You would choose her after everything?" Kyle's silver eyes never left Elara. "I already chose her once." Elara's breath caught. Pain flickered through his expression. "I was simply too cowardly to admit it." The words shattered through her completely. Because they were true. Every stolen glance. Every moment he protected her. Every hesitation during the rejection ceremony. He had loved her long before the moon forced him to face it. And suddenly Elara realized something devastating. Kale's greatest weakness had never been pride. It was fear. Fear that loving her would doom them both. The cursed king watched silently, almost sadly. Then the mountain trembled again. Different this time. Not rage. Collapse. The corruption beneath the kingdom was spreading rapidly, now that the ancient prison had broken. Black veins crawled across the palace walls. The shadow curse was escaping. The high priestess looked horrified. "If the corruption reaches the sacred wells," her voice shook, "every wolf in the kingdom will become infected." Seraphine staggered backward in horror. "No." The cursed king slowly lifted his ruined head toward Elara. "Only the celestial queen can purge it." Kael immediately turned toward him. At what cost? Silence answered first. Then the ancient king whispered the truth. The same price Selene paid. Elara's blood turned cold, because somewhere deep inside her awakening memories, she already knew what that meant. The mountain was dying. Black corruption spread through the palace walls like rot beneath skin, infecting ancient stone with shadow veins that pulsed slowly in the moonlight. Wolves throughout the kingdom howled in agony as the curse escaped the broken catacombs below Crownfang Palace. Somewhere beyond the shattered arena, bells rang endlessly through the capital. Not warning bells anymore. Funeral bells. Ash drifted through the freezing air, like black snow. And at the center of the collapsing kingdom stood Elara Vane, staring at the ancient king who had once loved the first celestial queen enough to destroy the world after losing her. "Tell me," she whispered. The cursed first king looked at her silently for a long moment. Then he answered, "The celestial bloodline can cleanse shadow corruption because your souls are bound directly to lunar magic itself." His ruined silver eyes lifted toward the moon overhead. "But purification requires balance." Elara's chest tightened. She already understood. Still, she forced herself to ask, "What price?" The ancient king looked at Kale, and suddenly the entire world felt very still. The queen must sever the mate bond willingly. Silence crashed through the ruined arena. Kale's expression changed instantly. No shock, not confusion. Terror. Real terror. "No," he said immediately. The word came so fast it almost sounded desperate. The first king's gaze remained fixed on Elara. "If the bond remains intact while the purification begins, the corruption will consume the king through the connection between your souls." Kale stepped in front of Elara instantly. "There has to be another way. There wasn't one before." The words hit harder than a scream, because history was repeating itself perfectly now. The shadow corruption, the poisoned mate bond, the celestial queen awakening beside a king, willing to destroy kingdoms for her. Selene had severed the bond to save the world, and it killed them both anyway. Not physically. Something worse. The first king survived 5 centuries trapped inside madness. Elara suddenly understood why the prophecy described kings dying beneath the celestial queen. Because the bond did not merely connect wolves, it connected identities, souls. To lose a true mate was to survive your own death. Kyle's breathing turned uneven beside her. "No," he said again. Quieter now. The mate bond pulsed violently between them in response to his panic. Elara could feel everything through it now. His fear, his rage, and beneath all of it, love so overwhelming it hurt to touch. The realization nearly broke her, because for years she thought Kale feared her weakness, but he feared loving her too much. The corrupted royal beast suddenly collapsed nearby, with a pained growl, as black veins consumed more of its massive body. The shadow curse was spreading rapidly through every creature connected to the old bloodlines now. The high priestess looked toward the city below the palace cliffs and went pale. Smoke rose from the lower districts. Wolves were beginning to lose control. The infection had already reached the kingdom. "We're out of time," she whispered. Seraphine stared around the ruined arena in horror. This wasn't supposed to happen. Nobody answered her, because intentions no longer mattered. The kingdom was dying. Elara slowly stepped away from Kyle. His eyes snapped toward her immediately. "Elara." The warning in his voice shook. For the first time since she met him, the royal alpha sounded afraid. Not of war, not of monsters, of losing her. Moonlight drifted across the broken arena, while snow began falling softly through the shattered ceiling overhead. Beautiful, cold. Final. Elara looked at Kale carefully, memorizing him in painful detail. The silver eyes that once watched her from across council halls. The scar beneath his jaw from the border wars. The exhaustion he hid from everyone else. The man who rejected her before the kingdom because he believed it might save her life. "You knew," she whispered softly. Kale's jaw tightened. "The prophecy wasn't complete. I didn't know how much was true, but you knew enough." He closed his eyes briefly. "When my wolf began weakening after Seraphine arrived." His voice roughened. "The old archives mentioned a celestial bond capable of consuming kings." Elara's chest ached. "So you pushed me away." Kyle looked at her again, and all the armor around his heart finally broke. "I thought, if the bond died early enough." He swallowed hard. "You might survive it." The honesty in his voice nearly destroyed her, because he had never stopped loving her. Not once. Even during the rejection ceremony. Even while humiliating her before thousands. He believed he was sacrificing her hatred to keep her alive. Elara smiled sadly. "You should have trusted me with the truth." "I know." The words sounded like confession, like regret, like surrender. The first king watched them silently from across the arena. Ancient grief filled his monstrous eyes, because he had once stood exactly where Kael stood now, and he already knew how this story ended. The skeletal celestial guardian lowered its enormous head beside Elara gently, waiting. The moon above the palace burned brighter, calling her. The whispers inside her soul had become clearer now, not commands, memories. Selene standing alone beneath moonlight, while kingdoms burned around her, choosing sacrifice because love demanded it. Elara finally understood the cruel truth about the celestial queens. They were never feared because they sought power. They were feared because they loved too deeply to let the world suffer for them. Kael suddenly grabbed her wrist, hard, desperate. "You are not doing this." The mate bond flared violently between them at the contact. Silver light spiraled around their bodies. Elara looked at him quietly. "If I don't, the kingdom dies. Then we find another way." "There isn't one." His breathing roughened. "I won't let you leave me." The rawness in his voice shattered her remaining strength. Because Kael Draven, the feared royal alpha, the king who terrified armies, looked at her now like a man standing at the edge of ruin. Elara stepped closer slowly. Snow melted against their skin beneath the heat of lunar magic surrounding them. "You once told me a sleeping wolf was still a wolf," she whispered. Pain crossed his face instantly. He remembered. Of course he remembered. "You saved me that night," she said softly. "When everyone else believed I was broken." Kael's hands tightened around hers. "Elara, and now I have to save you." "No." His voice cracked. This time, actual panic. The royal alpha dropped to his knees before her. The entire remaining court froze in shock. Kings did not kneel. Not willingly, not publicly, but Kael knelt anyway, snow gathering slowly in his dark hair while silver moonlight illuminated the devastation on his face. "Please," he whispered. The word nearly killed her, because this was no longer a king speaking, just a man begging the woman he loved not to disappear. Tears finally filled Elara's eyes. She touched his face gently, and through the mate bond, she let him feel everything she never said aloud. Every lonely year, every silent kindness, every moment she loved him while believing he could never truly love her back. Kael broke completely beneath the weight of it. The mate bond carried no lies, no masks, only truth. "I love you," he whispered hoarsely. The words came too late, and exactly when she needed them most. Elara leaned forward slowly until her forehead rested against his. "I know." Then the moon above Crownfang Palace split open with silver light, and the celestial queen answered its call. The moon cracked open above the kingdom. Silver light poured across the sky like a river descending from the heavens, flooding the ruined palace, the burning city below, and every snow-covered mountain surrounding Crownfang Keep. Wolves across the kingdom fell silent all at once. Not from fear, from recognition. The goddess had awakened. Elara stood motionless at the center of the shattered arena, while moonlight spiraled around her body in widening circles. The broken marble beneath her feet began glowing with ancient celestial runes older than the royal bloodlines themselves. Kael remained kneeling before her, unable to move, unable to breathe properly. The mate bond between them burned so brightly now, it felt less like magic and more like destiny physically tearing through their souls. "Elara," he whispered, but her name already sounded distant. Not because she was leaving him, because something ancient was rising fully inside her at last. The skeletal celestial wolf beside her bowed its enormous head completely to the ground. The cursed first king lowered his ruined wings slowly. Even the corrupted beast collapsed onto the broken marble, as if forced downward by unseen power. Every wolf in the arena submitted instinctively, all except Kay. The moonlight around Elara intensified. Silver symbols spread slowly across her skin like glowing veins, while her dark hair lifted weightlessly in the freezing air. Snow dissolved before touching her. The storm itself bent around her rising power. Beautiful, terrifying, divine, and still. Her eyes remained Elara's. That was what shattered Kael most. Because beneath all the celestial power, she was still the lonely girl who once stood beside him beneath winter cliffs, trying not to cry after another failed shifting ceremony. Still the girl he failed to protect. Still the woman he loved. The high priestess fell fully prostrate against the floor. "The Moon Queen," she whispered. Far below the palace cliffs, wolves throughout the capital began kneeling toward the shattered arena one by one, an entire kingdom bowing to a girl they once called broken. The irony tasted bitter. Elara slowly lifted her gaze toward the moon overhead, and the memories fully returned. Not fragments anymore. Everything. Selena's life, her love for the first king, the war, the betrayal by the shadow priests. The moment she realized the corruption would spread endlessly through bonded bloodlines if she remained connected to her mate. And finally, the sacrifice. Not death. Transformation. Selene never truly died. She shattered her soul across generations, burying the celestial bloodline within weakened descendants until one day, the Moon Queen could return free from the corruption that destroyed the old world. That descendant was Elara. The dead wolf inside her had never been dead. It had been sleeping, waiting. The truth settled painfully inside her chest. There was no escaping this destiny. The moon chose her long before she was born. Kael rose unsteadily to his feet. "No," he said quietly. The word barely carried through the roaring lunar wind, but Elara heard it instantly, because the bond tied every heartbeat between them now. Kael stepped toward her despite the overwhelming pressure pouring from celestial magic. "You are not sacrificing yourself for this kingdom." Elara's throat tightened. "This kingdom is innocent. The court isn't. Neither were the people who suffered because of it." Kael reached her finally. The moment his hand touched hers, silver light exploded violently through the arena. The mate bond resisted separation. Instinctively, power surged between them hard enough to crack the remaining marble beneath their feet. The first king watched in silence. Ancient sorrow filled his monstrous face, because he already knew what happened when love challenged destiny. Kael gripped Elara's hand tighter. "You said I should have trusted you," he whispered. "Then trust me now." Pain flickered across her face. "There is no other path." "Then we make one." The determination in his voice shook even the celestial power around her. This was the true Kael beneath the crown. The man who fought impossible wars because surrender disgusted him. The man who once bloodied a noble boy's mouth for mocking a lonely girl. The man who loved with terrifying intensity once he stopped running from it. And suddenly, Elara understood something. Selene's tragedy did not need to become hers. History repeated itself because people obeyed fear. But Kael was no longer ruled by fear. The mate bond pulsed violently in agreement. The celestial magic surrounding Elara hesitated. The first king noticed immediately. His ruined silver eyes widened. "Impossible." Kael looked toward the ancient king. "You believed love was your weakness," he said coldly. "That was why you lost her." Pain crossed the cursed creature's face. Kael stepped closer to Elara, until their foreheads touched beneath the silver storm. "But I would rather die beside her than survive by destroying her." The mate bond erupted. Moonlight exploded across the arena with blinding force. Elara gasped sharply as warmth flooded through the connection between them, not consuming, not corrupting, not painful, balanced, equal. The celestial power responded differently now. Not domination. Union. The high priestess looked stunned. "The prophecy," she whispered. "We misunderstood everything." The first king staggered backward slowly. No. The mate bond between Elara and Kael no longer resembled the broken celestial bonds from the old world. Because this time, neither tried to control the other. Neither chose fear over truth. And suddenly, the moon answered differently. Silver fire spiraled around both of them together. The corruption infecting the palace walls began burning away instantly. Black veins receded from the stone. The corrupted royal beast released a tortured howl, as shadow magic dissolved from its body like smoke beneath sunlight. Kael stared at Elara in shock. You're healing it. No. They were. Together. The celestial magic had never required separation. It required balance between king and queen. The shadow priests corrupted the old prophecy generations ago because they feared exactly this. A united celestial bond, powerful enough to end their influence forever. Seraphine stared at the unfolding miracle with tears streaming down her face. All this death, she whispered brokenly, for a lie. The corruption surrounding her own body began consuming her rapidly, now that the source weakened. Black veins spread across her throat. She collapsed to her knees. Elara moved instinctively toward her. Kael caught her wrist gently. She tried to kill you. Elara looked at Seraphine quietly. No, she whispered. She tried to stop a future she was taught to fear. Seraphine looked up in shock. Why would Elara pity her now? Because Elara understood her at last. Fear created monsters long before magic ever did. The moonlight surrounding Elara expanded slowly until it engulfed the entire arena. Every corrupted surface it touched healed. Every poisoned wolf below the palace stopped screaming. The kingdom itself breathed again. And at the center of the silver storm, Kael finally did what he should have done from the beginning. He turned toward the surviving court, toward the nobles who mocked her, the council that erased her bloodline, the kingdom that called her broken. Then the royal alpha knelt, fully, proudly, before Elara Vane, before the entire kingdom. My queen, he said. The words echoed across Crownfang Palace. And this time, no one dared deny her. No one in the history of the Wolf Kingdoms had ever seen a royal alpha kneel willingly before another soul. Especially not Kael Draven, the king who conquered border rebellions before 20 winters. The king whose enemies called him the Black Wolf of Crownfang. The king who once sentenced 3 rival alphas to exile, without raising his voice above a whisper. And yet there he was, kneeling in shattered marble beneath falling snow with his head bowed, before the girl the kingdom once believed empty. The sight broke something inside the court, not politically, spiritually, because wolves understood instinct better than words, and instinct recognized truth long before pride allowed it. If the royal alpha knelt, then the moon itself had chosen its queen. The surviving nobles slowly lowered themselves one by one, not out of loyalty, out of overwhelming pressure from the celestial aura flooding the arena. Some wept openly, others trembled violently. Several council members looked physically ill, realizing how close they came to condemning the true lunar sovereign. Elara stared at Kael in stunned silence. Snow gathered across his dark hair and broad shoulders, while silver light wrapped around him like sacred fire. He remained perfectly still before her, unashamed of the submission. Not weak, never weak, choosing. That was what made it powerful. The mate bond pulsed warmly between them now, no longer violent or unstable. The overwhelming hunger and pain that once threatened to consume them had settled into something deeper, balanced. The celestial magic no longer fought Kael's wolf. It recognized him, accepted him. Elara slowly knelt before him too. The movement shocked the court even more than his kneeling had. Kael's eyes widened slightly. What are you doing? Her lips trembled faintly with exhausted emotion, refusing to stand above you. For one suspended moment beneath the moonstorm, silence consumed the ruined arena. Then Kael laughed softly. A broken sound, disbelieving. Because after everything, after humiliation, betrayal, fear, prophecy, and war, she still met him as an equal, not ruler over servant, not goddess over king. Patna, the exact thing the old kingdoms feared most. Kael touched her face carefully, like someone still learning how to hold something sacred without damaging it. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Pain crossed Elara's expression immediately. You don't get to decide that for me. The words struck directly into his soul. The mate bond carried every ounce of sincerity between them now. No lies, no masks. Kael closed his eyes briefly, and for the first time in years, the crushing loneliness inside him eased. The celestial light surrounding them expanded further outward across the ruined palace. Black corruption vanished wherever the silver glow touched. Wolves below the mountain slowly regained control of themselves as the shadow infection burned away from their blood. The kingdom was healing, but not everyone could be saved. Seraphine collapsed fully onto the cracked marble floor nearby, black veins consuming more of her body every second. The shadow magic feeding on her soul had grown unstable now that the celestial bond purified the kingdom itself. The high priestess approached cautiously. The corruption is devouring her from within. Seraphine laughed weakly. How poetic. No one answered, because despite everything, watching her die still felt tragic. She had become a villain through fear, manipulation, and desperation, not cruelty alone. Seraphine slowly lifted her eyes toward Elara. I hated you, she admitted quietly, before I even met you. Elara remained silent. My family taught us stories about the Moon Queen. Seraphine coughed painfully. They said celestial wolves enslaved kingdoms, that they bewitched kings, that they would destroy the world if allowed to rise again. Tears mixed with soot across her face now. So I thought, if I became Luna first. Her voice cracked. I could save everyone. Kale's expression hardened slightly. You poisoned the bond. I know. No excuse. No denial. Only exhaustion. Seraphine looked toward the moon above the ruined palace. And now history will remember me as the villain. Elara's voice came softly. History remembers what frightened people most. Seraphine looked back at her slowly. The bitterness in her expression weakened into something almost mournful. You really are nothing like they described. No, the cursed first king rumbled quietly from across the arena. She's exactly like they described. Everyone turned toward him. The monstrous ancient king remained kneeling now, ruined wings folded behind his enormous body, while silver moonlight slowly burned corruption from his fur. He looked less monstrous already, less consumed. The hatred in his eyes had faded into grief. They feared her bloodline, he said quietly, staring at Elara. Because celestial queens make kingdoms see themselves honestly. Silence followed, painful silence. Because he was right. The kingdoms buried the celestial bloodline, not because it was evil, but because it threatened systems built on fear, hierarchy, and control. Elara's existence exposed every lie. The high priestess slowly approached the ancient king. If Selene sacrificed herself willingly, she whispered, why did the kingdoms erase the truth? The first king's expression darkened. Because kings would rather bury love than admit fear destroyed them. Kyle absorbed those words quietly. Elara felt his emotions shift through the mate bond. Regret, not just for rejecting her, for becoming the kind of ruler who believed fear was necessary. The moonlight continued cleansing the arena, while dawn slowly approached beyond the mountains. Snowstorms weakened. Black clouds retreated little by little from the sky. For the first time in years, the kingdom saw sunlight approaching without dread. Then suddenly, the celestial guardian wolf released a low growl. Elara stiffened instantly. The mate bond pulsed warning through her chest. Kale noticed immediately. What is it? The whispers returned. Faint. Ancien. Not hostile. Calling. Elara slowly turned toward the broken catacombs beneath the arena. Silver wind still rose from the darkness below. And deep beneath the mountain, something remained unfinished. The first king lowered his gaze. The heart chamber. The words darkened the arena again. Kale's eyes narrowed. What heart chamber? The ancient king looked toward Elara. When Selene shattered her soul to stop the corruption, his voice roughened painfully. Part of her power remained sealed beneath the mountain. Elara felt it immediately. A pull, deep inside her soul. The final piece, the true source of the celestial queen's power. The first king's silver eyes filled with warning. If it awakens completely, Kale stepped closer protectively. What happens? Silence. Then, the ancient king whispered, she will no longer remain fully human. The mate bond between Kyle and Elara tightened sharply. Fear surged through him instantly. Not fear of her, fear of losing her again. Elara looked toward the darkness beneath the mountain, and somewhere far below the kingdom, something ancient opened its eyes. Dawn never reached the catacombs. Even as pale morning light crept across the frozen mountains outside Crownfang Palace, the tunnels beneath the kingdom remained drowned in eternal silver darkness. Ancient stone corridors twisted deep beneath the mountain like veins beneath flesh, carved long before the first royal throne existed. And somewhere below them, something alive waited. Elara could feel it, not through sound, through blood. Every heartbeat inside her chest answered the pull beneath the mountain now. The closer she moved toward the shattered catacomb entrance, the stronger the connection became. Ancien, hungry, lonely. KL walked beside her in silence. Not ahead, not behind, beside. The simple choice tightened something painfully warm inside her chest. Royal guards lined the ruined passageways cautiously, while survivors worked desperately above to contain the palace damage. The celestial cleansing had halted the corruption spreading through the kingdom, but fear still lingered through Crownfang like smoke after fire. The court had not recovered from what they witnessed. Neither had Kale. Neither had she. The mate bond between them had become almost overwhelming now that the celestial power stabilized. Every emotion echoed through the connection. Every fear, every pulse of desire, every unspoken thought. Dangerous intimacy. Beautiful intimacy. Kyle glanced toward her as they descended deeper underground. "You're shaking." Elara realized he was right. Not from fear. Recognition. "These tunnels," she whispered. "I know them somehow." The first king walked ahead of them slowly, his monstrous form partially restored beneath the cleansing moonlight. Corruption no longer covered most of his body. Blackened fur had faded back toward silver white. His ruined wings remained broken, but less monstrous now. Less beast. More king. Still terrifying, but no longer entirely consumed by madness. "The catacombs were built around the heart chamber," he said quietly. "Celine created them herself after the war began." Kyle's jaw tightened. She planned her own sacrifice. The ancient king closed his eyes briefly. She planned to save us. Pain lingered beneath every word he spoke about her. 5 centuries later, and grief still ruled him. Elara understood why now. Because the mate bond made forgetting impossible. To lose a true mate was not like mourning ordinary love. It was surviving with half your soul torn open forever. Kael's hand brushed hers lightly as they walked. Stuck. Silent reassurance. But the moment skin touched skin, a vision struck Elara violently. She gasped sharply. Moonlit water. Celine standing barefoot beside an underground lake glowing silver beneath crystal ceilings. The first king holding her gently while she cried against his chest. "I don't want to leave you," Celine whispered. "You won't," the king promised desperately. But both of them already knew he was lying. The vision shattered. Elara stumbled. Kale caught her immediately. "Elara." His voice sounded strained now, whenever the vision struck her. Protective instinct surged constantly through the bond between them. "I'm all right. You keep saying that before nearly collapsing." A faint smile almost touched her lips. Almost, because beneath his frustration lived fear. Fear the celestial awakening would eventually take her somewhere he could not follow. The tunnels widened suddenly, into an enormous underground cavern. Everyone stopped. Even the royal guards behind them fell silent. The chamber looked less like part of the kingdom, and more like another world buried beneath it. Massive silver crystals grew from the walls and ceiling, illuminating the darkness with soft lunar light. Ancient statues lined the cavern wolves kneeling before a crowned woman whose face had been intentionally destroyed centuries ago. Selene, or perhaps every celestial queen before her. At the center of the cavern stretched a black lake, perfectly still beneath the glowing crystals overhead. And, in the middle of the lake, a heart floated above the water. Massive, silver white, still beating. The entire cavern pulsed with its rhythm. Boom, boom, boom. Elara stopped breathing, not metaphorically, Actually, because the heartbeat matched hers perfectly, the guards recoiled immediately in terror. What? In the god's name? The high priestess fell to her knees. The lunar heart. The first king stared toward the floating heart with unbearable grief. It still lives. Kael moved instinctively closer to Elara. The mate bond reacted violently to the chamber. Silver light flickered beneath both their skin, while ancient runes glowed faintly across the lake itself. Elara could not look away from the heart. It recognized her. She felt it, immediately. Not a stranger. As return, the whispers inside her soul became clear at last. Come home. The words echoed gently through her mind. Not commande. Invitation. Kael felt the shift instantly through the bond. Elara. His voice sharpened slightly. The fear returned, because her celestial aura was changing again, growing stronger, less human. The first king turned toward her slowly. When Selene shattered her soul, the lunar heart preserved what remained of the celestial bloodline. Elara's chest tightened painfully. That's why I survived. Yes. The ancient king's silver eyes darkened. But reclaiming the heart fully means accepting what you truly are. Kael's hand tightened around hers. What does that mean? Silence answered first. Then the first king whispered, she will ascend beyond mortal wolves. The cavern fell cold. The mate bond pulsed sharply between Kael and Elara. Fear, not hers, his. Kael stepped directly in front of her now. No. The word came instantly. The first king looked exhausted suddenly. You cannot stop destiny forever. I can try. Elara's throat tightened. Because he meant it. Kael would fight gods themselves before surrendering her willingly. The ancient king looked toward him carefully. That devotion is exactly why the moon chose you differently from me. Kael frowned. The first king slowly approached the Black Lake. When Selene awakened fully, I feared losing her humanity. Pain twisted across his face. So I tried to chain her to mortality instead of trusting what she was becoming. The cavern fell silent. Elara suddenly understood everything. The first king's love became possessive, fearful, controlling, and that fear shattered them. Kael listened carefully now, because he recognized the warning hidden beneath the confession. The ancient king looked directly at him. If you try to hold her back from this path, his voice cracked softly, you will lose her exactly as I did. Kael's breathing roughened. The lunar heart pulsed brighter. The call inside Elara intensified painfully now. She stepped toward the Black Lake, unconsciously. Kael caught her wrist immediately. The moment he did, the entire cavern erupted with silver light. The lunar heart reacted violently. Ancient runes ignited across the lake, while celestial magic spiraled around Elara's body in massive waves. The guards staggered backward. Several dropped to their knees. Kael refused to release her. Elara. His voice broke slightly. The bond carried everything he could not say aloud. Don't leave me. The pain inside the connection nearly shattered her resolve, because she did not want to leave him. Not now. Not after finally finding each other beneath all the lies. Elara slowly lifted her free hand and touched his face gently. I'm still here. For now. The honesty in his voice hurt worse than anger ever could. The lunar heart pulsed again. Stronger. The silver light surrounding Elara intensified until even her eyes glowed softly beneath the crystal cavern. And deep inside the mate bond, something new awakened. Not distance. Not separation. Transformation. The moon was not trying to take her away from Kael. It was asking whether he could love her even after she changed. Kael realized it seconds later. The fear inside him shifted slowly. Not gone. Never gone. But changing into resolve. He stepped closer until their foreheads touched. Then he whispered the one thing the first king never managed to say to Selene. I will not cage you to keep you. The lunar heart answered instantly, and the entire cavern shook. The lunar heart exploded with light. Silver radiance flooded the underground cavern so violently that every crystal embedded in the walls began singing with ancient resonance. The black lake beneath the floating heart trembled in widening circles, while celestial runes ignited across the stone floor like stars awakening beneath ice. Khal did not let go of Elara's hand, not even when the power surged hard enough to drive royal guards to their knees, not even when her body began glowing brighter than the chamber itself. The first king stared in stunned silence, because this had never happened before. When Selene awakened centuries ago, the bond between them fought the celestial power. Fear corrupted love. Possession corrupted devotion. But Khal had just done something no king before him ever had. He chose trust over control. And the moon responded. The mate bond no longer resisted Elara's transformation. It harmonized with it. The lunar heart pulsed once. A massive shockwave burst through the cavern. Elara gasped sharply as celestial power tore through every vein in her body. Memories, emotions, and ancient magic collided together inside her soul until she could no longer distinguish where Elara ended and Selene began. The sensation should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like finally breathing after drowning her entire life. The dead silence inside her soul vanished completely. In its place rose something enormous. A wolf. Not ordinary. Not mortal. Ancient silver fur unfurled through her consciousness like moonlight taking shape. Massive glowing eyes opened somewhere deep inside her spirit. Older than kingdoms. Older than kings. And yet the creature did not overpower her. It bowed. Not submission. Recognition. The celestial wolf queen had never been separate from her. They were the same soul. Elara cried out as silver markings spread fully across her skin. Her dark hair lifted violently around her, while moonfire spiraled upward from the black lake in towering pillars. Khal's grip tightened instantly. Elara, she heard him. Barely. The power flooding through her threatened to pull her beyond language itself, beyond flesh. The lunar heart descended slowly from above the lake until it hovered directly before her chest. Boom, boom, boom. Each pulse synchronized perfectly with her heartbeat now. The cavern shook harder. Cracks spread through the ceiling overhead. The high priestess stared upward in horror. The mountain cannot contain this much lunar power. The sentence never finished, because the heart entered Elara's body. Silver light detonated across the cavern. Every wolf present cried out simultaneously, as ancient celestial magic swept through their souls. Khal dropped to one knee under the overwhelming force, but he never released her hand. Never. That choice mattered. The moon remembered it. Elara's scream echoed through the cavern, while her body transformed inside the storm of silver fire. Not monstrous, not corrupted. Magnificent. Moonlight wove through her flesh itself. Her eyes turned luminous silver white, while celestial symbols blazed beneath her skin like living constellations. And behind her, a gigantic spectral wolf appeared. The true celestial queen, towering over the underground lake with silver fur made from moonlight itself. The spirit wolf lowered its massive head beside Elara protectively. The guards collapsed completely. Even the high priestess wept openly. The moon goddess had returned to the kingdoms. Khal slowly rose, despite the crushing force surrounding her. Elara. His voice reached her through the chaos, through the power, through the ancient memories threatening to swallow her whole. And instantly, the storm weakened. The celestial wolf turned its enormous glowing eyes toward him, watching, judging, testing. Khal met the creature's gaze without fear, not because he wasn't terrified, because his love outweighed it. The spectral wolf stepped closer until its massive head hovered directly before him. One bite could destroy him instantly, but Khal did not move. He simply looked at Elara through the creature's glowing form. I know you're still there. The words cracked something inside her beautifully, because beneath all the celestial power, he still searched for her. Not the queen, not the goddess. Elara. The spectral wolf's expression softened. Then, slowly, the enormous creature bowed to him. The cavern gasped, collectively. The first king stared in disbelief. It accepts him. No, not accepts. Chooses. The celestial power surrounding Elara stabilized instantly after that. The violent storm of magic settled into flowing silver light, spiraling gently around her body, instead of tearing through the cavern uncontrollably. Kael stepped toward her carefully. "You came back," he whispered. Elara looked at him fully then, and he nearly stopped breathing. Because she had changed. Not physically alone. Something in her eyes now carried eternity inside it. Ancient sadness. Ancient wisdom. But still warmth. Still humanity. Still love. Tears filled Kael's eyes before he could stop them. The mate bond flooded instantly, with relief so overwhelming it hurt. Elara touched his face gently. "I told you," she whispered softly. "I'm still here." Kael laughed shakily, a broken sound full of exhaustion and devotion. Then suddenly, the cavern trembled again. Different this time. Violent. The first king turned sharply toward the upper tunnels. The shadow priests. Kael's expression darkened instantly. "What?" The ancient king's ruined wings spread slightly. When the celestial seal weakened, his voice hardened. The surviving shadow cult would have felt it. The high priestess paled immediately. They still exist? Fear like theirs never truly dies. A scream echoed distantly from the upper tunnels. Then another. Royal guards reached for weapons immediately. Kael stepped protectively beside Elara. The mate bond pulsed sharply. Danger. A wounded guard stumbled into the cavern seconds later covered in blood. My king. He collapsed hard onto the stone floor. Black arrows protruded from his back. Chaos erupted instantly. Dark figures appeared throughout the upper tunnel entrances, clad in black ceremonial armor, marked with ancient lunar scars. Shadow priests. Not dead. Waiting. Watching the kingdom for centuries from the dark. And at their center stood an old woman draped entirely in black veils. Her blind white eyes fixed directly on Elara. "The Moon Queen awakens again," she whispered calmly. Hatred rolled through the cavern like poison. Kael immediately moved in front of Elara. The old priestess smiled faintly. "Still protecting celestial monsters, royal wolf." The first king snarled violently. But the old woman ignored him completely. Her blind gaze remained fixed on Elara alone. "You carry too much power for this world to survive," she whispered. Elara felt the celestial wolf inside her rise instantly in response. Ancien rage. Ancient memory. The shadow priests murdered her bloodline once before, and they came now to finish what they started. The old priestess slowly raised a silver dagger carved with black runes. "We will not allow another Moonfall war." Kael's wolf aura exploded across the cavern instantly. "You'll die trying." The shadow priestess smiled sadly. "Yes," she whispered. "Probably." Then the cavern erupted into battle. The first arrow flew toward Elara's heart. Kael caught it with his bare hand before she even saw it coming. Black shadow magic hissed against his skin instantly, burning through flesh, and sending dark smoke curling through the cavern air. The royal alpha snarled violently and snapped the arrow in half, while celestial light surged instinctively through the mate bond to heal the wound. Then, the underground cavern exploded into war. Shadow priests descended from the upper tunnels like black ghosts, their ceremonial armor covered in ancient lunar markings soaked with forbidden magic. Silver chains whipped through the air. Shadow fire erupted against the cavern walls. Royal guards collided with cloaked assassins beneath the glowing crystal ceiling, while the black lake churned violently beside them. The old blind priestess remained still through all of it, watching, waiting. Her pale, dead eyes never left Elara. "She's the anchor," the old woman whispered calmly. "Kill the queen and the celestial line dies forever." Every shadow priest in the cavern turned toward Elara at once. Kael shifted instantly. Dark fur exploded across his body, while silver celestial markings blazed through his wolf form like moonfire beneath midnight skin. His roar shook the entire cavern as he threw himself directly between Elara and the charging assassins. The mate bond pulsed violently. Protect, protect, protect. The instinct thundered through him so powerfully, Elara nearly staggered beneath it. The first king launched himself into battle, seconds later. His restored silver-white form crashed through the shadow priests with terrifying force, ruined wings smashing stone pillars apart while ancient rage consumed him fully now. "You dare return here!" he roared. The shadow priests did not retreat. That frightened Elara more than if they had, because fanatics, who feared death, could still be reasoned with. Fanatics who welcomed it could not. The old priestess raised her black staff slowly. "You should have remained buried beside your queen." The first king tore through 3 shadow priests in response, but more replaced them immediately. Too many. Far too many. The cult had been preparing for this moment for generations. Elara raised her hand instinctively. Silver moonfire erupted across the cavern. The celestial power answered her effortlessly now. Not wild anymore. Controlled. Beautiful. Terrifying. Shadow magic evaporated wherever her lunar fire touched. Several assassins screamed as celestial light burned directly through the corruption infecting their bodies. But then Elara realized something horrifying. The priests were not merely attacking. They were completing a ritual. Black runes had already spread across the cavern floor during the battle, forming massive interconnected symbols around the black lake. The lunar heart pulsed uneasily inside her chest. The old priestess smiled faintly. "You feel it, don't you?" Elara's stomach tightened. The runes were feeding on celestial energy, using her awakening itself to fuel something worse. "Kyle!" The royal alpha turned immediately through the chaos. The lake. Too late. The black water exploded upward. A massive column of shadow burst from the center of the underground lake, while ancient screams echoed through the cavern. The crystal ceiling darkened instantly. Moonlight flickered violently, and from the black water rose wolves. Hundreds of them. Ghostly. Twisted. Corrupted by shadow magic. The dead wolves of the Moonfall War. The high priestess gasped in horror. The Lost Legion. The shadow priests had not come merely to kill Elara. They came to resurrect the ancient celestial war itself. The cavern descended into absolute chaos. Ghost wolves surged toward the royal guards with glowing black eyes, while shadow magic consumed the remaining crystal light overhead. Kale tore through the spectral creatures viciously, silver celestial markings blazing brighter every second through his dark fur. But every ghost wolf he destroyed simply reformed again from shadow. The old priestess laughed softly. "You cannot kill grief, Royal Alpha." The words struck strangely deep, because the entire cavern now felt shaped by grief. The first king's grief. Celine's grief. Centuries of fear and loss feeding the shadow corruption beneath the kingdom. Elara suddenly understood. This war had survived so long because no one ever truly released it. The old priestess raised her staff toward Elara. "The Moon Queen's love destroys kingdoms," she hissed. "It always will." Elara stared at the resurrected battlefield around her. The ghosts, the blood, the endless cycle repeating again and again. And suddenly, she realized the terrifying truth. The shadow priests never feared celestial power itself. They feared what happened when love became stronger than systems built on control. Because kings who loved celestial queens stopped fearing old laws, old hierarchies, old power. Kale crashed through a group of ghost wolves before shifting back into human form beside her, breathing heavily while blood ran down his bare arms from shadow wounds already trying to heal. "They're trying to overwhelm the bond," he said roughly. Elara nodded. The ritual fed directly on emotional chaos. Fear, rage, loss. If she lost control of the celestial power now, the kingdom might truly burn. The old priestess sensed her hesitation immediately. "There," the woman whispered triumphantly. "That fear, that is how it always begins." Elara's chest tightened, because part of her was afraid, not of herself, of failing, of becoming another Celine. Kale touched her face suddenly. The simple contact cut through the chaos instantly. His silver eyes locked onto hers. "You are not her tragedy." The mate bond surged warmly between them. Not possession. Faith. Kyle trusted her completely now, even with enough power inside her to destroy kingdoms. The realization steadied her more than magic ever could. The old priestess snarled. "You fool. Love is exactly what doomed the first king." Kale looked toward the shadow cult calmly. "No," he said quietly. Then he turned fully toward Elara. Fear did. Silence hit the cavern. Even the first king froze mid-battle. Because Kale had spoken the truth, none of them managed to understand for 500 years. The celestial bond was never the curse. Fear corrupted it. Fear poisoned it. Fear turned love into control. And suddenly, the first king dropped to his knees. The realization shattered him visibly. Not because he stopped loving Selene, because he finally understood how badly fear twisted that love. "I caged her," he whispered brokenly. The ghost wolves throughout the cavern flickered violently. The shadow priests panicked instantly. No maintained the ritual, but the first king's grief had been anchoring the curse all along. And now, he was finally letting it go. The monstrous ancient king slowly lifted his eyes toward Elara. For the first time in centuries, they looked peaceful. "Do what I could not," he whispered. Then the first king released the bond, tying him to the shadow corruption. Silver light exploded through the cavern. The ghost wolves screamed. The black lake erupted violently, and the entire underground war began collapsing around them. The old priestess shrieked in fury, "You doomed us all." But Elara finally understood what needed to happen. Not sacrifice, not destruction. Release. The celestial queen raised her hand toward the dead, and for the first time in 500 years, the Moonfall War began to end. The cavern became silent. Not completely. The sounds of battle still echoed faintly through the crystal halls. Shadow priests screamed. Stone cracked. Magic burned through ancient tunnels beneath Crownfang Mountain. But beneath all of it, something changed. The hatred was fading. Elara stood at the edge of the black lake, while silver moonlight spiraled around her body like flowing silk. The lunar heart pulsed steadily within her chest now, no longer wild, no longer unstable. Calm, the celestial power understood what she intended to do. Not destroy the dead. Free them. The ghost wolves surrounding the cavern flickered violently as the first king knelt before her, with tears streaming silently down his ancient face. 5 centuries of grief had finally broken open. "I kept her trapped," he whispered hoarsely. "Even after death." The words shattered through the mate bond painfully. Kyle felt it too. The unbearable weight of a love so terrified of loss that it chained the world itself to suffering. The first king looked toward the swirling ghost wolves filling the cavern. "They were never soldiers anymore," he said quietly. "Only memories too wounded to leave." The old shadow priestess screamed from across the chamber. "Do not listen to him." Black magic exploded from her staff toward Elara. Kyle intercepted it instantly. Silver celestial fire erupted through his claws as he slammed the shadow curse aside hard enough to shatter crystal pillars nearby. The royal alpha looked terrifying now beneath the cavern light. Dark wolf power fused seamlessly, with celestial markings burning beneath his skin. No corruption remained inside him anymore. The bond had transformed him completely. The shadow priestess stared in horror. "You let her change you." Kyle's eyes never left Elara. "She healed me." The words struck through the cavern harder than violence, because they were true. The celestial queen did not weaken kings. She revealed what they truly were, beneath fear. The ghost wolves howled painfully around the cavern as shadow magic continued trying to hold them together. The old priestess raised her staff desperately. "She cannot release them," she screamed toward her followers. "If the dead pass on, the old kingdoms lose their truth." Elara finally understood. The shadow cult survived by preserving fear, preserving hatred, preserving ancient wounds so kingdoms would remain divided and controllable. Peace threatened them more than war ever could. The celestial wolf spirit inside Elara stirred gently, not with rage now, with sorrow. The dead wolves surrounding the lake were not monsters. They were victims, warriors trapped between life and death by centuries of unresolved grief. Elara slowly stepped forward. The black water beneath her feet turned silver where she walked. The ghost wolves recoiled instinctively at first. Then, slowly, they lowered their heads. Recognition spread through the dead legion. Their queen had returned, not to command them, to release them. The first king bowed his head fully. Selene once promised she would lead us home after the war ended. His voice cracked, but the war never ended. Elara looked at him, softly. It can now. The mate bond pulsed warmly beside her. Kael stepped close enough that their hands brushed lightly together. Not controlling, not restraining. Simply there, steady, equal. And suddenly, Elara realized why the moon chose him differently. Not because he was stronger than the first king, because he learned from fear instead of surrendering to it. The old shadow priestess saw the shift happening around the cavern and panicked fully. "No," she shrieked. The remaining shadow priests began carving new runes frantically into the stone floor, trying desperately to preserve the corruption unraveling around them. Too late. The first king rose slowly to his feet, and for the first time since awakening beneath the mountain, he looked like a king again. Not monster. Not curse. A man. Broken. Grieving. Finally honest. He turned toward the shadow cult, with ancient fury burning in his silver eyes. "You poisoned kingdoms for centuries in her name." The old priestess lifted her chin stubbornly. "We protected the world from celestial tyranny." "No," the first king whispered. Then his voice thundered across the cavern. "You protected your own power." The truth hit the surviving shadow priests visibly. Several faltered. One even lowered his weapon completely, because deep down, they already knew. Fear built their order. Fear fed it. Fear justified every atrocity committed in the name of protecting kingdoms, from love powerful enough to change them. Elara raised her hand slowly toward the ghost wolves. Silver moonlight spread outward across the lake. The dead legion froze. Noblewoman. The shadow corruption began peeling away from them like smoke dissolving in sunlight. The cavern filled with cries. Not pain. Relief. The wolves were remembering themselves before the war. Warriors. Mothers. Brothers. Daughters. Not monsters. Not curses. Just souls trapped too long inside sorrow. The high priestess wept openly behind them. The ghost wolves slowly approached Elara through the silver light. And then, they bowed. Hundreds of ancient spirits, kneeling before the moon queen beneath the crystal cavern. The sight stole breath from everyone present. Even Kael. The celestial wolf inside Elara lifted its head proudly within her soul. Not domination. Homecoming. Elara's voice echoed softly through the cavern. "You are free." The silver light erupted outward. The dead wolves dissolved into glowing moonfire one after another, their forms finally breaking apart peacefully beneath the celestial blessing. Ancient howls filled the cavern, not screams now. Farewell. The first king watched them disappear with tears running silently down his face. Then, at last, he looked toward Elara and smiled. A small broken thing, but real. "Thank you," he whispered. The shadow priestess screamed in rage. "You would erase history itself." The first king turned toward her calmly. "No." He looked toward Kael and Elara standing together beneath the silver light. "We are finally allowing history to heal." The last ghost wolf dissolved into moonlight, and suddenly, the curse beneath Crownfang Mountain broke completely. The black lake transformed instantly into clear silver water. The shadow runes across the cavern walls shattered. The remaining shadow priests staggered as their corrupted magic collapsed with the dead legion finally released. The old priestess dropped her staff. "No," she whispered weakly. Centuries of fear died in that moment. The mountain exhaled, and somewhere far above the crystal cavern, the first true sunrise in generations touched the kingdom of Crownfang. The first king slowly approached Elara one final time. The celestial light surrounding him had begun fading now. His soul was finally passing on, too. He looked toward Kael quietly. "Love her without fearing what she becomes." Kael's throat tightened. "I will." The ancient king smiled faintly. Then, he looked at Elara. "Not us, Selene," as herself. "Elara Vane," he whispered softly. The moon chose well, and beneath the silver dawn, the first king finally turned to light.